Hey subscribers, welcome to this video. I'm joined by Nina from our wholesale team.
Yep.
But Nina, you're here because we are gonna taste 2 coffees that are going out to subscribers. And you've been to visit one of them.
Yeah.
I've been to visit both of them.
Yeah.
Should we start by tasting these coffees maybe?
Yeah, I think it sounds like a good idea.
We ground them, we are ready to cup them. Let's put some water and then we'll talk a little bit more about them.
Yeah, I think it's maybe actually 3 years ago since I was in a subscription video the last time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think also we tasted Kieni back then. And since then I actually had the pleasure of traveling to Kenya and visiting the Kieni wet mill. So I think for me now Kenya has a whole different perspective, or I taste Kenya with a whole different perspective now, which is super fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kieni is the one coffee.
Yes. The other one is from Colombia and it's called Jaime. It's also a coffee that we had on the menu for many years and a completely different flavor we will see in the Colombian coffee here.
Both of these coffees are washed, processed, so you get some like very nice, clean, delicious flavors out of them. Mm-hmm. But of course they're completely different kind of flavor profiles. So
yeah. I think for the 2 coffees here, which is fun, is that they both showcases really well the flavor profiles that you get from these 2 origins. Like it's a very beautifully explained or showed Colombian coffee, and the same goes for the Kenyan one. So I think that's what's fun about these 2 here. Now I've been to Kenya, and I've tasted Kieni many times, and I think even though Jaime has been on the menu a lot as well, it's a coffee that I'm a little bit less familiar with. So I think it would also be fun to hear a little bit more about Colombia and especially Jaime.
Yes, so Jaime is in the Huila region. It's named after Jaime Casillas, the owner of the farm. His wife Olimpa is known in this company to be one of the best chefs we know. She makes awesome food and they are super, super friendly when we go to visit them. We've been working with them for a long time now, and I think it's around a decade, but I'm actually unsure exactly how many years it is.
Yeah. I think when I read up on it, it was around 11 years actually.
11 years, yeah, time flies. And they have been, for me, one of the outstanding Colombian producers. One of these good examples of a private farm who really takes it seriously, experiments with a lot of things, but not just to do crazy experiments, but to constantly become a little bit better in everything they do. All right, now my watch is telling me we need to break the coffee. Right, we've broken the crust, cleaned them off. We're gonna let them just cool a little bit down before we taste them. We can keep talking a little bit about Jaime, because I think it's a fantastic farm. It's really beautiful in the area they're in. Like the farm is kind of at the bottom of this valley, and then all the fields just extend out from there. They grow a bunch of varieties, including geishas and more of these like typical Caturra and Colombia varieties. So it's a very nice, clean, balanced coffee. I was super impressed going there with their how structured they are, both in terms of processing the coffee, but especially in terms of the drying. Their drying beds are really meticulous. They have almost like a whole profile for drying the coffee, and I just think it shows in the cup. I
think also maybe Peter at some point had mentioned that they are also working a little bit with different varieties and exploring that a little bit more, and then getting some more fun varieties in and really working at the processing and at the production of those. Yeah, and sometimes they keep them separate, but sometimes they actually mix them, and you can always think that it's so nice to taste individual varieties. But I actually think there's a lot of benefits sometimes to mixing the varieties, getting something that can be a little bit more complex. And the geisha, for example, their own geisha, I mean, it's not on the level of Takeshi geisha. It's not the world's best geisha. It's still a really good geisha, but when it's mixed in with the other ones, it's actually fun how it just provides a little bit of florality, but you still get a little bit more mouthfeel, a bit more body and sweetness from some of the other varieties. So this kind of field blend, as you would call in wine, is not at all a bad thing in my view in terms of coffee. All right, that's Jaime. Then we move to Kenya, where you've been. Yeah. You finally got to go. I finally got to go to Kenya, and of course it was such a wonderful experience, of course because of the people that are there and also for the beautiful landscape. And then it was extremely fun seeing the wet mill and experiencing the processing there. And I think also one of the fun things was seeing during the day like how different types of people are actually coming into the wet mill. Yeah, because it's a cooperative, so it's around 1,000 smallholder farmers who deliver coffee to Kieni. And they are just very different. Like you have the one single woman who has a little small farm, almost just a garden, you know, maybe 100 coffee trees.
and it's like, some extra income. And then you have the really big professional farmers, 3,000 trees, could be its own estate. They're still delivering to Kieni because it's good to be a member of a cooperative and not have to deal with all the issues of processing. Yeah. So was going to Kieni, was it like you imagined? Yeah. Was it very different going, or?
No, I think it's very much how I imagined it would be. I think from the information, of course, like the pictures and the videos that we have from Kenya, it very much well portrays how it is. You get that incredible soil. You see a very lush area as well.
It's very biodiverse out there actually. Yeah. Like even though they produce so much coffee, I mean, there's just heaps of other trees growing around, and you can actually drive right past a lot of farms and not realize there's coffee trees in there. And,
I think that was also quite fun because we of course visited the wet mill, and then we also went out to some of the farmers that are producing coffee for the wet mill as well, and also seeing exactly the farms that they're producing on. It's such like a different varieties of things that are growing on the farm. It's not only coffee, but then it's also tree tomatoes or banana plants or anything else that is just naturally in the area as well. And you also see quite a bit of wildlife, which I also think was quite fun. You see a lot of different birds, and you see a lot of different insects as well. And I think that's also just very much portraying the coffee that you get from Kenya and the production that is in Kieni. And then I think by saying like it's very much what I imagined as well, I think that the farm is very specific or very unique. And the colors there are very unique, and like the people there are very unique. So I think all that is very much as we see it.
And you got to meet their new mill manager as well, Patrick.
He's super sweet. He's extremely passionate about the work that they do at Kieni as well, and he's constantly curious to know as well from our side and from our perspective how we interpret the coffee and how our guests react to the coffee as well, and constantly want to learn and get feedback for the production that they have.
Yeah, and I think he's instrumental to the quality as well, because as much as all the individual farmers will grow and nurture the trees and do, you can say, this first sorting in just the hand picking, the selective hand picking of the cherries, he's instrumental in terms of how the coffee is actually processed. First of all, what does he allow into Kieni? Is it only fully ripe cherries from that area of a certain quality? And the depulping, is the machine set correctly? There's already a quality separation happening while depulping. Then of course fermentation, which is really crucial. That doesn't ferment too long, but also that he ferments enough, that he washes it carefully, that it's dried carefully with the right amount of drying time and shaded. All these things, it's very much on him to produce that part of the quality. All right, let's have a taste of the coffee. Let's see, should we start with the Jaime?
Yeah, right off the bat, I get a lot of acidity, but a lot of sweetness as well.
Yeah, there's like a really nice wine grape kind of sweetness to it, like very good sweetness. Really clean and delicate. It's not a super heavy coffee. It's certainly not a light coffee either. Like it just has this really lovely textured mouthfeel. Yeah. There's some like apples, Granny Smith apples. And it's fun because you get some florality as well. It's not like a super floral like a washed Ethiopian or a geisha or something. But you can detect that there's a little bit of geisha in there. Yeah. And it just brings out just a little more.
For me, I think the balance in the cup is super nice. And as you mentioned as well, like the cleanliness really creates just like a very light and easy drinkable coffee. I think like it doesn't really demand anything from me.
But I think that texture as well will go well in espresso. You can sometimes think these very clean washed coffees can sometimes lack some structure or something. It's so clean, it's so sweet, that when you pull it as espresso as well, you're gonna get a very nice tactile feeling and just a good overall sweetness. To start off, Kieni, imagine that as espresso. That's gonna be a fruit bomb. That's gonna be so much juiciness, and go for the acidity, bring it out, enjoy it. Combine it with milk and you'll get like a milkshakey kind of vibe to it.
You get a lot of depth to it as well. Yeah. And I think also it's quite fun to compare these two in terms of the mouthfeel, because of course the acidity is so distinct, or so distinctively different between the two cups, but it's also then how the mouthfeel plays into that as well. I think it's quite fun.
And I would say the Kieni is of course much more oily and full bodied. It's like it's much heavier in a way.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and flavor-wise, I think the Kieni is just like, there's so much of the classic Kenyan that we are looking for, this black currant, dark berry kind of fruit notes. You can find other Kenyans, we have other Kenyans that might be more citric and more sharp in the acidity, and this one is just like, there's a lot of sweetness, there's a lot of body to balance it as well.
Yeah. And you can see that Kenyan coffee in general, they have a high acidity, and as you say as well, they can become more citric, a little bit sharper in the acidity, but I think that's why Kieni is so special, because it has so much sweetness that it becomes more like juicy.
And it's exactly something we worked with Kieni for a number of years on, being very strict in the selection of coffee cherries going in. Talk to them, giving them feedback throughout. I think it's like 14 years or something we worked with them. And that feedback process and going back every year, getting to know each other, they know what we're looking for. We know that if we pay really well, they'll be more incentivized to produce this high quality. And it starts out there on the coffee trees. All the members of this cooperative, they know that if they do that job really carefully, they're gonna end up with a sweeter cup, and that means more money to them. So it's a win-win for them and for us. That's the 2 coffees. We hope you're gonna enjoy them, both as filter and for those of you brewing as espresso. We'd love to hear back from you. If you have any tips, anything you want to share, that's anything you're curious about and want us to talk about in these videos, please let us know in the comments below. Cool, thank you so much for joining me today, Nina. We'll see you again in sooner than in 3 years.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. And thank you for watching.